The following program is recorded at Kinaxis, the Kinaxis Annual User and Training Conference. I'm pleased to welcome SupplyChainBrain Editor-in-Chief, Russell Goodman.
Turning supply chain risk into opportunity. An interesting topic, and here to speak with us about it today is Joe McBeth, Vice President, Supply Chain at Jabil. Joe, welcome.
Thank you, Russell. It's great to be here.
Joe, many of us are familiar with Jabil, at least in general outline. But for anyone who isn't, tell us a little something about the company. What does it do? What's its focus?
Jabil is a manufacturing service provider, one of the largest in the world. And we do everything from full product design, logistics, and manufacturing services, as well as supply chain services for the biggest names in the world, all products that everybody buys.
All right, then. As you look back over the last couple of decades or so in supply chain, I think you'll agree there's been a great deal of change, even transformation in supply chain. Coming forward, as you look at the supply chain at Jabil today, what would you say are the primary challenges for your supply chain there?
The challenges are consistent with some of the things we've seen in years past, but more dramatic today than they were. You know, the complexity of globalization, the number of nodes or suppliers, the number of customers and industries we serve, all add a large amount of complexity to the equation in solving the solution for our customers.
I want to ask you about the role of supply chain management. Do you see it as a competitive advantage, as a tool that gives you an advantage over your competitors?
Well, of course, I'm biased. I think supply chain is the most competitive advantage we have in our space, as well as, as long as it's connected to the things that we create for value with our customers, like manufacturing and design services. In our space, there are a lot of good players, and to be a standalone or unique entity in that is very hard. We work all from very small margins. It is hard to create a unique proposition beyond what our competition does, but I think our service offering and our ability to connect the complex businesses to a great value prop in supply chain does create some separation.
You know, it's probably fair to say that everybody working in supply chain wants to be at a place that has world-class supply chain. What do you think are the must-have capabilities that would enable such a supply chain?
Well, you know, the first thing is you need a footprint that is in the supply chain. It is where the manufacturing occurs, where the supply base is. To have the technical knowledge in that space is critical. The other very important thing is to have a data system and a tool set that allows you to manage the complexity that happens day to day. The guy with the best information is always going to win, and if you don't have a tool set to support those good people in the field, then you're going to be behind the scenes.
You know, you talk about tool sets, and I know that at Jabil you have invested in rapid response, Kinaxis' product. What were the needs that you faced at Jabil that led to that investment?
Well, you look at what we do for a living, and we create value for customers in many different industries. The amount of data that transpires with demand management and the number of suppliers that are out there. We have 12,000 active suppliers. We have 250 major accounts. To keep ahead of the curve in making smart decisions, you need a data set that can help you do the planning around that and understand the risks inside the supply chain that you're, in some cases, inheriting and sometimes developing a new supply chain for. But understanding those risks around the master schedule and how we commit to customers on demand signals really drove us to look at a tool set that was fast, was easy to use, and could do multiple scenarios so that we could come out with better answers.
Our interview today is taking place at the Kinaxis Training and User Conference, and you're here to speak specifically about risk management. And I just wonder if you can share with us some risk scenarios that you've faced at Jabil in the last year or so and how you managed those.
It's very interesting. I am speaking here in part related to the risk of the unknown supply chain. As the supply chain gets very large, the cost of managing that can outweigh the value in doing that. So you have some unknown. The number of suppliers, understanding their business really clearly can create risk. So how do you manage the supply chain for the unknown supply base that in some cases can't be eliminated? The other thing that I'd look at is Japan. You know, it was an unknown risk. No one had planned for a tsunami or an earthquake. And how do you respond to that? How do you set your supply chain up to anticipate the unknown? Very hard to do, but there are steps you can take to lower the amount of risk that's in that.
You know, Kinaxis has just announced what it calls the Control Tower. And that offering is designed to enable planning and monitoring and what-if response simulation to supply chain management and sales and operations planning. I'm interested in knowing if you see that as consistent with the way you see the value chain evolving.
It absolutely is. You know, as we expand into different regions of the world, that whole supply chain needs to be reconfigured to support those manufacturing sites. Having a control tower that feeds the best information, that does the modeling, will allow us to be ahead of the game, lower our risk, lower our cost, and produce greater value for the end customer.
You know, when you speak with Kinaxis officials, they will tell you it's absolutely imperative that companies have the ability to immediately sense any deviation from plan. And moreover, it's imperative that they be able to come up with critical course correction. Here's the question for you. How important is that level of responsiveness to businesses in your estimation?
Well, obviously it's critical. I'd take it even a step further. Today, it's absolutely a necessity to be successful to make those course corrections. Tomorrow, I'd like to be looking at systems and processes and supply chains that anticipate, that don't just respond to the change that takes place, but anticipate what might take place, where the issues might arise, and then how do we respond to those with the same systems that exist today, but do it proactively as opposed to the nature of we have an issue, let's solve it now.
From a capability standpoint, let's talk about what we have right now. What is required to have that degree of responsiveness?
Well, again, it starts with having data, having a system that can process data. We can't spend our time doing the numbers, computing the numbers. We have to have systems that look for exceptions, produce those to the folks that can make decisions in a faster manner, and you need to have some flexibility in the way you create that, because the value stream for an X-ray machine will be very different for a cell phone. And that's the kind of businesses we're in. So maximizing for one supply chain is probably not the right answer. Having a system that allows you to maximize for many would be much better suited to our business.
Highly useful information. Joe, thank you very much for meeting with us today.
Thank you.
That's Joe McBeth, Jabil, and speaking with us today about turning supply chain risk into opportunity. Thank you for watching.